Right. What a great place to be. We're going to talk about AI mistakes. You can act now with insights from advanced AI. We're going to talk a little bit about AI agents. We're going to talk a little bit about our own agency, developing further some of the ideas we talked about last time. And then we're going to dig into what does it look like? How can we take advantage of all of this stuff? There's a lot of really great things happening in AI. And I got to be honest with you, I've never been more excited to be in the world of AI. There's so many opportunities that abound, and there's some really great things that we just need to talk about. Each and every time we meet, I'll be bringing you insights around AI mistakes and how you can take advantage of AI to better yourself and the world around us. That there's a lot of opportunities that we have to explore, and we can't tackle them all, but we're going to tackle them one at a time. Hi, I'm Daniel Lemire. I'm the founder of AI Mistakes, and I got a great show in store for you today. Let's dive right in and start talking about where we are. It's January 10th where I am right now. That means we're 10 days into 2025. What an interesting place that we find ourselves already today, only 10 days in, and the announcements around AI have started. A few days ago, the annual CES convention was held in Las Vegas, and Jensen Huang got up on stage and shared some really fascinating details that are in development, in the works at NVIDIA. What they showed us was the release of the NVIDIA Cosmos World Foundation model. And this is really exciting. I mean, you got to see this. Let me throw this up on the screen so you can take a look at it. What NVIDIA has been developing is an entire capability around enabling robots to explore the world. Essentially, NVIDIA Cosmos is a physical AI. It allows the development of robotic solutions, the training of models, and the programming of the robots to navigate the world. And what's amazing about this solution is that it allows the acceleration of these capabilities. When we talk about what's possible with AI today, you may have already seen that you can really dig into the possibilities, create advanced simulations, but they're very much limited to what the model can communicate through. And what NVIDIA Cosmos does is turn that into a 3D interactive world that becomes a complete simulation of reality. And this includes all of the necessary components that you might need to really work with and train these vision models and robotics. You can, with a few words, build entire environments to explore. Now, what's amazing about this development is that not only is it realistic in terms of physics, but it's an open model. So there's a lot of opportunity to develop. You can download this model right now and begin working with it. You can choose the right size for you and then really get started. If you want to develop robotics, this is a great place for you to get started. I think we're going to see a lot of major advancements in 2025 in the field of robotics. And I made that prediction in the newsletter as I released it earlier this week without even having known that this was a pending release. So this Cosmos model is actually going to really make what I'm projecting a reality, turning the robotics capabilities to our benefit. And look at all of the organizations that are leveraging this solution. Now, when I made that prediction, I was really looking at a couple of the available solutions. 1X and Figure are definitely among the companies that I'm watching, but there's a lot more. And if you saw the NVIDIA conference in the middle of last year, you saw Jensen on stage with a whole host of robots. This is very clearly the future for NVIDIA. Some really exciting times. And I think that what that means is that we are in a time right now that doesn't include all of these AI capabilities being able to act in the real world. And that's going to come back as an area of importance in just a moment. But let me keep going with, let me keep riffing on this idea because I think there's some more for us to talk about. And I want to explain the idea to you fully, where I'm going with this. I mean, look, we have been in a time already in the last few months where everyone is talking about AI agents. I am part of that, right? I made the prediction that in 2025, it's going to be the age of AI agents. What exactly does that mean? Well, let me see if I can kind of paint the picture for you a little bit better. It's possible to use AI to do all sorts of incredible things. And we've been talking about automation in computing for a very long time. In fact, very early days of computing were very much focused on the telephone and the telegraph. In fact, so much of the genesis of telecommunications was based on those capabilities. In the very early days of those developments, we had individuals that had to play the role of operator, physically connecting lines so that you could have a conversation. And as time evolved, that became automated. And instead of having to have a person physically connect to those switches, there were mechanical pieces, and those were connected to a computer, increasingly complex computers over time to automate those connections. You might say that the telephone automated switching system was an agent of sorts. Now, that was purely automation. There were no artificial intelligence models involved. But when we talk about the current state of the art, AI agents are very much a goal for us to shoot for. There's a lot of companies that are making plans. You know, they're trying to flesh out what this might look like. They're actually putting code in place to enable the activation of agents. And I'm delighted to say that I have the opportunity to work for one of those many software companies that are developing solutions that enable agents to do work on your behalf. There's some really amazing technology that's coming, but it's also something that's very much under development. And if you look into what the capabilities are today, you might make some discoveries. And one of those is that let's take a look at what's actually being released. Now, there's some talk about what's coming, but I want to talk about what's been already announced, what we know about, what we have in existence today. And what we saw over just the last couple of weeks is OpenAI released their new O3 model. And what's fascinating about O3 is the incredible benchmarks that that model is able to beat. I mean, we're talking about mathematical concepts that you and I probably can't even understand. And it's answering those questions. It's understanding how to compute those answers and understand those equations. It's reasoning at an incredibly high level. But that's also not an agent. OpenAI has not released any true acting on your behalf capabilities. Yes, we have function calls. Yes, we can connect AI models to tools. And I think that is absolutely the beginning of that process. But if it's not on a computer, it's not something that you can take advantage of. So the question is, are they going to succeed? I think we're on the cusp of that. But the reality is that we're not there yet. In fact, if you want to use AI agents, there's a lot of understanding that you have to go through, books to read, principles to understand, frameworks to absorb. And absolutely, the cutting edge folks are working on that. But what about the rest of us? I mean, look, the reality is that we have real work to get done. There are things that have to happen. And let me get a little more goal setting on you, because again, we're 10 days into 2025. Everybody talks about New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year. And if you're doing things right, you're spending some time putting together a plan to figure out what you're going to do. But here's the thing. We've all been there, right? You set a goal, you make a plan, you're working really hard, and yet somehow you fall short of achieving what it is that you're trying to do. It's frustrating, right? You got to keep the motivation up. You've got to focus on what needs to be done. You got to drive that self-confidence, because when you don't meet your goals, that can also be a challenge. And we've got all sorts of methods for goal setting and planning. Look, we break things down and we're translating that into technology, right? Try to make it as simple as possible. So you've got smaller tasks. So you feel like you can take it on in a day and succeed. But even with all of that tooling, all of that planning and breaking things down and trying to put it into the smallest possible chunk, we still struggle. Sometimes procrastination gets in the way. We get distracted. We lose focus. Sometimes you just can't stick to the plan. But how do you make sure that you're doing the right things? Well, it's kind of amazing how things line up sometimes, because as I was putting together this discussion throughout the week, I was thinking about what it would look like to maintain that agency, right? And maintain control over what it is that we want to accomplish. And lo and behold, as I'm browsing the interwebs, I come across a post from Matt Wolf. Now, if you've not come across Matt Wolf's channel, I can definitely recommend it. He's done a great job of keeping up with the news. He's got a fantastic website, Future Tools, tracking the latest in tools and AI. Really amazing stuff. But this is what he shared with the world today. And I thought this was so on point and really fed directly into the conversation that I want to have with you tonight. And the story that he tells basically is he's been keeping a personal journal and he's been uploading those entries into Claude. And after he's uploaded those entries into Claude, he's having a conversation with Claude about how he can grow, he can be a better person, how he can run his business better. And he was able to get some really valuable insights by having that conversation with Claude. Really amazing and powerful stuff from Matt. And he shared that story with us on X.com tonight. And I was really delighted to see that, because that's what I am excited about, right? How can we operate with agency? How can we be successful? I mean, the reality is that you and I have the most advanced intelligence known to man, quite honestly, right? And if you look at the numbers, if you've studied the brain at all, there are 86 billion neurons right up here. Now, I love to talk about artificial intelligence. It's a fascination of mine. But the reality is what you have up here is more powerful than any model. It's just a matter of training. So how do you train yourself? How do you get yourself in position to take advantage of all of the incredible opportunities that are out there? Maybe you need a partner. Maybe you need a smart, intelligent friend. And we've got one. In fact, if you've seen any of the previous conversations I've had here on the channel, or maybe you've just seen it out on the great wide internet, you know the capabilities of these large language models are really incredible. Now, this graphic is from September 2024 by way of Alan Thompson, and he's got lifearchitect.ai. He's got some really great content out there, and he shared this mapping with the world. And if you look at that PhD domain expert right there, the 65% on the GPQA score, an IQ of 150 and higher, you'll see that GPT-4o falls just short of that. And we know that that model has been constantly improving. I think the benchmark here is probably a little bit under where we are today. But certainly, if we look at Claude 3 Opus and 3.5 Sonnet, now don't get confused. This is the first release of 3.5 Sonnet, not the second release. We're on the second release of 3.5 Sonnet, which we know also improved. So it's probably moved a little bit further down the mark there. But then we've got O1, which is surpassing even that. O3 is not on here because that was just released in December. But it's very clear that we've got models that can help us do some really advanced things. But even if you are not leveraging that PhD capability, there are things that you can gain by using those lesser capable models. If you have been observing the evolution of prompt engineering, you probably know that O1 is not the best model for doing action-based things. Sometimes 4.0 is actually better because it's a smaller, faster model. Not every model is designed for every purpose. O1 is really designed for that advanced thinking, thinking through problems and trying to identify the next step. And if you've got a Chat GPT subscription, you do have access to O1. I pay and continue to keep that subscription opened up. There's that entirely new subscription we've talked about that's over $200 a month. I'm not signing up for that. I get enough use of O1 on a monthly basis that I can run my goals and think about those advanced things. I'm very careful about how I use those because I am limited by how much of a conversation, how many tokens I have with O1, but it's enough for me to do some really advanced things and think through what it is that I'm trying to develop. So this is something I'm actively doing. You're probably wondering, okay, Daniel, I get it. O1, PhD in your corner. It can help me get my stuff done. But how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that by turning it into our smart friend that helps us build confidence in whatever it is that we are going after, because it's not just a goal, right? There are things that you have to achieve. You got to keep it on track and get after it. So we're going to step up the game and we're going to take action. And here's how we're going to do that, because the problem with AI agents today is the world capabilities are still in development. You aren't necessarily able to take action on those most important things. And that's what you and I are going to do, because we're going to train the brain. We're going to fixate on those things that we need to do. And we're going to take care of business. We're going to get started right now. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to stop what we're doing, because you're going to have to get some clarity. And that means you're going to have to turn off the phone. You're going to have to stop the social media. Yes, you're going to have to turn off my YouTube channel and think about what it is that you want to achieve. Because if you're not thinking about what it is that you're going after, you're never going to get there. If you don't have a goal in mind, it's just not going to happen. You have to think about what it is that you want. And we need to talk about it. Now, this is kind of the fun part, because maybe you just need to start turning it over and brainstorming what that looks like. Well, we've got these incredible models. Now, it's not O1, but look, again, if you've got a Chat GPT subscription, you've got the ability to talk to the model. You can whip out the phone, open up Chat GPT, and have a literal conversation with AI about what it is that you want. So you can just start rambling, start talking about what it is that you're interested in, what you've been thinking about, what you've been pondering. You don't have to write anything down in a journal if you don't want to, but hey, if you have that conversation with ChatGPT, it's also going to transcribe that entire conversation for you. So you'll actually have a journal. And you can reuse that, because you can copy that entire conversation. You can drag that into a folder and use that as you're developing your own capabilities. There's a lot of opportunities there for how you can use this and have a conversation about what it is that you want. But the goal here of this entire focus and setting everything aside and thinking about what it is that you want, you're trying to get after that vision for yourself. What do you want your life to look like? Now, I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say you have more in your mind than what you want to do with your occupation. You have more in mind than what you want to do with organizing your office space or achieving your tasks, taking care of your family members. Maybe you've got some other goals in your life. There are many dimensions that you can think about in terms of your vision. I did this a few years back, and I just sat down with a pad of paper and a pen, and I thought about all of these different areas of my life that I wanted to focus on. And you really do need to think holistically about your life. Think about your friendships. Think about where you are with your faith. I could go on and on about faith, and I think there's a lot more that we have to talk about. I'd love to hear from you if you've got questions. Speaking of questions, we've got some folks on the live discussion. Please do drop in those comments. I'd love to hear from you as we're talking about how you can leverage advanced AI capabilities to solve your problems, to figure out what to do, to develop your vision and get after it. Take action, right? Think about all of those dimensions of your life that matter. And if you come across questions, we can talk about that here in the community, but you don't have to wait for me. That's the other really cool thing about what we're going to discover here is essentially being able to get that immediate feedback. And as we're talking about what that looks like, Roshan, you're asking, is this some new agentic framework? Well, let me keep going and explain where I'm taking this. I think there are some elements of the framework I'm going to talk about that are absolutely applicable to agentic framework. But I want us to think about where we are as individuals first, because that whole agentic thing is still very much in development. And you and I are here today. We can develop our vision and get after what it is that we want to achieve right now, today, by taking the right actions. Once you have your vision in mind and you understand all of those things about your life, you can begin to build the plan. And how do we build that plan? Well, there's a couple of different ways to do that. But once you understand what it is that you're chasing, what it is that you want to make happen, right? You're going to be able to sit down and think about, okay, I can do this. You're going to get your mindset in the right place. And there's a couple of different tools that I want to share with you to make that possible. You see, I've developed this thing called the mistakes framework, and I've talked about this at length on the channel. So there are some other videos that you can pick up and take a look. And I'm not going to beat this really hard tonight, but I want to let you know that part of the reason I developed the mistakes framework was to help you take advantage of the time that you have and get started right away. I've also got some course curriculum that I've developed and I'm refreshing right now that can go in depth into exactly what this looks like, but I'm not going to go into detail about that tonight. I just want you to know it's out there. What is most important is that as we're talking about things, you're able to take action. You're able to put that thought into a framework so that you can develop it. You can focus on it and turn it into reality by doing the right things. And I'm not the only one with this idea. In fact, a few months ago, there was a meme out there where people were going into ChatGPT and saying, tell me about myself based on everything you know about me. And we have the ability to take advantage of this. I mean, there are lots of ways that you can go about doing this, but I'm going to give you some specific steps, some specific prompts that you can use. And you can look up things that others were using to discover what it is that they need to work on. We saw Matt's story earlier in the conversation. But what does that mean? We're going to take action, and we're going to do that by 4 main things. We talked about getting the clarity, so you already understand what it is that you want to achieve. We're going to make sure that we understand what kind of skills, what are the things that we need to make that a real thing. You know, if you have a vision of being an artificial intelligence expert, well, you're going to have to go get skills, right? I mean, you're going to have to go hit the books. You're going to have to read some great works that explain how artificial intelligence functions today. Maybe you find a good source for AI papers and you start informing yourself about that. You watch a lot of YouTube, people that are explaining the latest in AI, the latest models and news and what they're capable of. And you're also going to need to make a plan. You're going to need to set some timelines for when are you going to achieve those things. Because if you're not putting some constraints around accomplishing those goals, you're never going to get there. And look, if you set a goal and you miss it because you made a mistake in setting your goal time frame, that's okay. You make a new one and you keep going. And once you have that plan, you get started. And as you are doing that work, you've got to take notes. You've got to use that information and hand it off to the model. Because if you're not being honest about what's taking place, there's no help for you. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with your helper. And in this case, that's our AI. You don't have to go hire a coach. That is another opportunity you have with me. If you're looking for an individual that can coach you on this kind of development, I can do that. But you don't need to pay a guy like me to be your coach. You can do all of this inside of the most advanced models. And you can take advantage of all sorts of additional knowledge that is inside of those models to help you overcome those obstacles. But essentially, you're going to ask for it to critique what it is that you're doing. You're going to explain what actions you're taking, what you're thinking as you're doing it, how your day and how your week and how your month and how your quarter and how your year have been advancing. It's making those checkpoints and then being honest with yourself about developing yourself, making yourself better. See, it's possible to make AI your partner, and it's going to identify not only your strengths, but your weaknesses by looking at what you're actually doing. And you have the benefit of these advanced models to look at your habits and ask you about your motivations and provide those insights that are specific to you so that you can overcome those obstacles. Now, let's go a little deeper because maybe you need a little more insight to make that happen. I talked about the framework, and go grab the framework. I'll put a link in the video notes. You can go and grab this. This is freely available. I want you to take advantage of this. Not only can you take advantage of the framework by downloading the PDF, but actually there is a GPT out on ChatGPT for the mistakes framework, and it will help you work through whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to build a product, you want to build an offering, you want to build a company, you want to improve yourself, this framework is really valuable for doing exactly that. And yes, Rashawn, to your point, this is the framework that I'm talking about. You can use this framework to develop anything, and that includes agentic AI, getting you to think through what it is that matters the most, doing the necessary research, sketching out the possibilities, breaking the problem down and testing it, and then adapting, because you're never going to get it right out of the gate. And that's the truth with us as well, right? Nobody's perfect. We make mistakes. That's why it's the mistakes framework. But you probably need some prompts to get started. So look, you don't have to be a prompt engineer to take full advantage of this. I'm just giving you a jumping off point so that that's not something that slows you down. You want to help to get clarity? Go into ChatGPT, start talking about your goals, and then you can prompt it. Ask me questions about my goals so I can better define them. How do you think these goals are defined? Are they good? Are they bad? Be brutally honest with me, like Matt, right? What can I do better? I really want you to tell me, critique the work that I've done here so that I can do better. And for those times when your motivation is flagging because you've had a rough day or things just aren't going your way, it might help to ask what kind of progress you're making. Because the truth is, we're all making progress. Maybe it's not at the speed that we want to make, but when you have that conversation with an advanced model, you can say, ask me what I've done to make progress on my goals and provide suggestions. Because it's not only where you are and how far you've come, because you are making progress, but also helping you focus on what that next step is so that you're not wasting your energy on things that aren't helping you achieve your goals. If there's one thing I've learned from my own personal development, it is that my stress is at the maximum level when I set my goals and I don't do anything to work toward them. And that's exactly what this motivation prompt will do for you. Now, once you've got the clarity, right, you've got to build a plan. So maybe you need help building the plan. You're having that conversation with ChatGPT about building the plan and putting it out there. You can use the mistakes framework to do that. But let's say you don't want to go that far. You just want to get something simple on the page. Ask me how my plan has changed and help me identify the weaknesses. You can continue to evolve. In fact, a big part of the mistakes framework, if I can just go back to that briefly, you might have noticed the decoration around the word mistakes at the top. Those arrows are an acknowledgement that as much as we'd like to move forward through the letters, map, investigate, sketch, test, adapt, kickstart, evaluate, and sustain, sometimes you've done a lot of work, you've mapped everything out, you've investigated it, you've done the research, you build the sketch, and then when you start testing it, you find out, oh, that doesn't work at all like I thought it would. And you have to go back and you have to maybe investigate some more and then make a new sketch. And then you got to start testing all over again because it's completely different from where you started. That's the reality of life. That's why I built the mistakes framework, because things don't go to plan, right? So you recalibrate, right? You see where you are and you reset the plan. You start again. You pick up the pieces and you keep going. And then there are those times when, look, we procrastinate. We don't do the thing that needs to be done. We're frustrated. We're demotivated. Our self-confidence is not where it needs to be. And oftentimes that's because we're not doing what needs to be done. So the action prompt, right? I mean, look, if you get in front of the terminal and you're having a lengthy conversation with GPT, that's great. You can learn a lot from that. But having a keyboard chat or even a vocal conversation with ChatGPT voice is not taking action. You can learn the most important, valuable lessons the world has ever known, but if you don't do anything with it, you've still done nothing. That's the part that you've got to focus on. And again, emphasizing that be honest with me, tell me what I'm actually not doing is really valuable. That is where the insights come from, because one of the challenges with these models is while they are very empathetic and they're really great for helping you feel good about yourself, and that's valuable, sometimes you kind of have to push them to say, just be brutally honest and tell me what I need to do, because that's going to get the job done. That's ultimately what you need to do, is take action. Get after it. Find out what it is that you need to do so that you can make things happen. And if you repeat this over and over again, and again, that's a part of the mistakes framework, you're going to get to mastery, because repetition is mastery, right? The more you do it, the more you try it, that's when great things are going to happen. The goal here is to make your reflection, your reflexive action, to look at what you're doing and or not doing and turn that into action. Because if you're not acting, nothing is taking place. So with that, that is what I have in store for you today. And I want to encourage you to get out there and go make mistakes. And when I say go make mistakes, yes, I'm talking about the mistakes framework. Go and do that stuff. Figure out what it is that you need to do and get after it. There's so much opportunity right now with where we are in AI. I mean, the fact that you and I can pull up a computer or a phone and type in chat.com and we have the world's information at our fingertips. I mean, we don't even have to do Google anymore. You just ask a question and it spits out an answer. It may not be right all the time, but by golly, if you know nothing about a topic, you're going to learn something. Even if it's hallucinating the answer, there's going to be something valuable that you can learn from that. So have a vision for yourself. Get after it. Go make it happen. You are the one that's going to make that take place. And I think, look, if you're an entrepreneurial mindset person right now, this is an opportunity like no other, because you can do things. You can develop yourself. You can develop your organization, your business. I think we're going to see in the next couple of years the very first single person business that makes millions and billions of dollars. We're already very close. And I don't know about you, but I mean, you need a certain amount of money to live on. I think it's possible to build that and develop it at the level that you want. You can make a living off of that. And heck, if you've got a day job, maybe it's time for a side gig. Just get something started. If nothing, you're going to learn a lot in the process. And that's ultimately what all of this for me is about, because having the best technology available. Yeah, I've got my phone with me all the time, but I don't want to depend on that for answering and having a conversation with somebody. I want to develop my brain. Going back to that 86 billion, this is with me all the time for as long as I'm on this earth, and I want to make it as good as possible. And that means I've got to take action. I've got to take care of business. I got to make me better. So I want to encourage you to go and make those mistakes. And I want to encourage you to get after that vision that you have for yourself. And if you don't have one, go develop it. And if you need some help, I'm here to help. We're going to be here talking about AI mistakes, understanding where the AI gets it wrong, where we get it wrong, and using the AI. I'm in the process of building out the entire rubric, the ontology, if you will, of AI mistakes, all of the ways that things go wrong, all of the ways that things can get better, how we can improve ourselves, all things AI mistakes, good and bad. And we're going to keep doing it here. So I appreciate you joining me tonight. We have plenty of time. We can talk tonight. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear what you have. Let's take a look at our chat session here. We've got a few comments. Thank you both for joining live. Really appreciate you being here. Rashawn, prompt engineering is not a skill. I would say that one needs domain knowledge. Yeah, LLMs can actually help you with the prompting. In fact, I would say that as we get into the more advanced models, there is going to be less and less a need for prompt engineering. I don't think we're quite there yet, but what I have discovered in interacting with O1 is that it's not so much about prompt engineering. In fact, it's really more about explaining what it is that you want, what your goal is, and asking those questions so that it can fill out that response in a meaningful way. I definitely think that we are going to hit a time in the future where that will not be needed. It'll definitely be more like perhaps the vision that Roddenberry had in Star Trek Next Generation, where you talk to the computer, you tell it what you want, and it just knows what to do. I think that's something that we'll see in the future. But today, prompt engineering is definitely a thing. If you're building an application that interfaces with AI, if you're building AI agents, prompt engineering is definitely going to be a part of that. And what I've been working with really does require some pretty intensive testing because you need to be able to have some sort of really good understanding of how you can make that a reliable, consistently delivered answer. If I'm building an agent that's going to do something specific, I wanted to do that with some regularity, right? When we talk about the LLMs, the early days of the conversation, we talked about how it was non-deterministic. It was actually not possible to get the same answer. And I think in order for agentic AI to be really successful, there'll have to be some amount of determinism that we build into the system. And the only way to do that is with extensive testing and very significant prompt engineering and management. So, yeah, it absolutely does require domain knowledge, especially as you get to these very specific use cases, which is the other thing that we see with agentic AI, right? It has to be domain specific. You have to be very narrowly focused to be able to build an agent. I don't think we're going to see these very large models that are doing agent work. In fact, what we're already seeing in a lot of the frameworks is you have the most intelligent agent that is sort of the manager, the director, the one that's making the decisions about what needs to be done. And then the simpler, more effective, more efficient, less capable models are doing the execution of the task work that needs to be done. And that just seems to be the emerging pattern, because ultimately, when you're getting into automation, you also want to make that as cheap as possible. And that requires faster execution. And so there's all sorts of reasons that the smaller models make better sense for that, but they're not all good at that either. So a lot of calibration to be made at that level around agentic AI. And I look, I really do think that we're in for an exciting year. We're definitely going to make some major progress with agentic AI this year. But I also, really want to encourage you not to wait for agentic AI to happen. I think a lot of people think that this is going to happen overnight because we've been moving at such an incredibly rapid pace. And there are definitely things that are being sorted out. If you're doing any kind of coding, it's really come a long way. I've been working with multiple different AI coding solutions. I still spend the most effort in GitHub right now, but I've been playing with myriad solutions. And honestly, I've got an app that I'm trying to build and I haven't finished it because I get stuck. And while I do coding, I want to be able to do it with the AI. I'm looking for the solution that really builds that. And we're, at least in my experience, we're not there yet. Now, there are some folks out there that are building all sorts of things with AI, and they're being dramatically successful in doing that. So clearly there are some cases where it's possible. And just because I haven't been able to do it doesn't mean it's not possible. But also, there's kind of a really steep learning curve that has to be undertaken. Um, yeah, it is kind of funny when AI knows you well enough to generate prompts. And I think that too is one of the interesting things that we're seeing in the development of agentic AI is the better the memory gets, the better the capability of the agent is. There seems to be a direct relationship between what it remembers and how effective it is. And when you think about all of the things that are out there about us, that is a fascinating challenge in terms of what that means for us and how we're going to exist in the world. I mean, virtually no database has existed that has remained 100% protected in perpetuity. I mean, look, in terms of identity theft, it's a matter of when, not if. And if you haven't gotten one of those notices already, just wait, it'll happen. Because there are numbers and information out there that drives our economy, and people want to take advantage of that to do the things that they want to do, and it's not always legal, it's not always ethical. And that is definitely a point where we have to think about, how are you putting this kind of information into a source and thinking about it. There is model training to consider, and if those are things that you're most concerned about, there are many different ways that you can take advantage of running more advanced models on your own equipment. I think in 2025, we're going to see some substantial development around that. And if you're thinking about what actions to take, let me also encourage you, give that to a lower level model and see what kind of results you're going to get. You may be able to make a lot of really valuable progress for yourself without it being the most advanced PhD based model. But also, you might consider about judiciously using the delete command for those prompting sessions. And look, you take a blob of text, you save it in a text file, you download it to your computer, and you upload it when you're ready to have that conversation. So there are ways that you can protect yourself from those kinds of things. And the ultimate reality is that all of these things are out there that we have to live with in the modern world. I'm less and less concerned about those things because I can't control it anyway. What I can do is make myself better. And if I'm making myself better in the process, well, that's a win. That's what I can control. So, it is interesting to think about all of the ways that you can have it do that work for you. Honestly, and when I think about all of the capabilities that we have today in terms of what can be generated, the thing I'm still most excited about is generating images, because oftentimes the idea of what I want, I'm not good at describing those things. That's my wife's department. She's really great at understanding all of the art styles. And, I could sit her down and say, what kind of terminology do I need to use for generating art? And she knows it. Like she's trained it. It's up here, right? It's part of her domain expertise. But I need help, and I need that prompt to be generated for me, because, it's just something I'm not good at. When I make these backgrounds for the show, I use Mid-Journey still because that's really my favorite, and it really helps me. I can look at what other people are doing in their prompts and get inspired by what they're showing, and then they've got tools to improve the way and the styles, and so I'm leveraging that. There's several different ways that you can augment the prompt, and that's really powerful, right? And I think we're quickly getting to a point where, especially with the video generation, if you go back and look at the Sora video I did a few weeks back, you told it what it was you were looking for, and it actually broke that prompt down into the segments for the generation. So there is a prompt generation capability built into what they are doing to make that video come to life. So there's increasingly things that are out there to help us take advantage. And that's the other thing, right? The more you work with this, the better you're going to understand what kinds of questions you need to be asking. And by working on this for yourself, by interacting with the AI, asking these questions, you're going to also think about, what kind of questions do I need to be asking myself? I mean, when you type a question in and you get an answer back, you're going to have an opinion about its answer. You may not agree with it, but you're going to think about it. And oftentimes you sort of autonomously are evaluating those things as a part of your memory, right? You remember that interaction with that advanced AI model telling you that you didn't do the thing that you needed to do because you spent an hour on Facebook watching video shorts or TikTok or any of the others. You can use social media to your advantage, just don't let it take over your life. Take your own needs into consideration. Spend some time thinking about what it is that you want to accomplish and go make it happen. So, listen, I've gone on and on tonight, probably far too long, but I really enjoyed the conversation and the question. I really want to appreciate those of you that joined us live. I really do delight having that live conversation. And I'm going to get going on my system that's going to turn these into recorded videos that are useful as well. So, sort of the live portion will eventually fall off, but definitely for the first few days, we'll leave the live conversation up as a recording for you to come back and take advantage of. I'll put the notes together and get those out so you can take advantage of that. I'll share the details on the world model we talked about, the mistakes framework guide, and a couple of links to the courses and the other materials that I have. And if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please go and grab that. There's some good content I'm putting together in there. We're going to continue to grow the newsletter and put those useful tips there for you to observe and take advantage of. And with that, hey, go make some mistakes, make yourself better, and we'll see you next time. Take care.